Episode 6, Rescuing Turtles and Other Divine Interruptions. Welcome to Reviving Your Soul, where Christians are finding the courage to embrace their faith in all aspects of their lives so they can stop being bored or overwhelmed and begin to live the life in fulfillment and in peace that God created them for. I'm your host, Vanna Johnson. Let's get started. Have you ever noticed how when you get it in your head that you want to do something by a certain time, it seems that everything under the sun will come up to take you off of that mission? You can devise a plan as to how something is going to turn out, but it really works out the way you envisioned. At least that's how it works for me. It doesn't seem to matter whether you've communicated your plans to others or not. Sometimes the path seems to take on a life of its own. I've learned to view at least some of these distractions as divine interruptions. This was highlighted for me recently when I had been traveling for several days. I was tired. We were headed home from a women's retreat, but it seemed to be taking forever. Every stop was making me more anxious, and it seemed the world was plotting against my plan for being home that day, which meant another night away from my husband and my bed. Now granted, I'd already adjusted my expectations because I was in a van with 5 other women, and we just spent the entire long weekend together at this amazing retreat with 250 of our new friends. All thoughtful, caring, and gifted women who were called to help others gain health and improve lives. The 6 of us were full of great ideas and sharing scenarios where we could all serve better when the driver of the van quickly and without warning pulled over to the side of the road and stopped. I was certain there must have been an accident, or worse. I was amused to find out that we had driven past a turtle crossing the road, and her personal mission is to save turtles from the dangers of being on a highway whenever she can. So we turned the van around, drove back to the spot where the turtle was crossing the road. She hopped out and carried that little traveler to safety. Not minutes later, we were back in the van, and there was another, even smaller turtle on the road, so he too was rescued. Now, I have to admit that my initial thought was, really? Am I the only one who wants to get home today? Somehow, before we got headed in the right direction again, we not only had driven several miles out of way, we had ended up on a different highway altogether that promised to take us several miles in the wrong direction. By this point, I was downright frustrated. I tried hard to keep it to myself, and then we laughed about our turtle rescue mission, and we had a great time discussing how our journeys are so much like the turtles. We don't always go as fast as we like, but with patience and endurance, like the turtle, we too will reach our goals. In fact, we named ourselves the Turtle Rescue Group. I didn't make it home that night, and it wasn't until I laid in bed in the dark of that night that I realized that the scenario was very parallel to my life as an entrepreneur. I had started my supplement business and then later my coaching practice with this goal in mind as to how much money I would be making and when I would reach that goal. I just hadn't counted on all the smaller missions or divine interruptions that would come my way on this journey. I hadn't factored in that there would be extra stops to nourish relationships, to build complementary programs, and sometimes to just slow down and enjoy the beauty of the trip. It's been several weeks now since that trip with my turtle tribe, and our lives have all resumed on our separate paths as they always do. But my mind keeps coming back to that lesson I learned that day about rescuing turtles. We only rescued 2 turtles on that trip, but I realized that I've rescued far more than a few along my personal journey. In fact, it's the turtles, or the side missions, that make our lives interesting. It's the opportunities that God puts in the way that lets us gauge how we are really doing in this life of ours. Are we so focused on a self-made goal that we don't even see the person or turtle that is in the path before us that needs help? Do we get so wrapped up in our to-do list that we miss the really important things right in front of us? I know that happens to me a lot. Thankfully, I was able to get out of my self-set goal of getting home by a specified time during that recent trip and was able to appreciate the opportunity to spend some time with my new turtle tribe. They are some of the most mission-driven and giving women I've met in a very long time, and I almost let a few hours delay in that trip home spoil that whole experience for me. What a shame that would have been. So what did I gain from that experience? I learned to bask in the knowledge that the delays were just as much a part of the journey as the time spent speeding down the highway at 70 miles an hour, probably more so. I learned that as God's servant, I need to accept whatever He brings into my life as my agenda, not what I had decided it to be. I learned that I always needed to be looking out for ways to help others or rescue turtles and be less concerned about my self-designed day for the day. To do what was needed, even when it was inconvenient for me. Before I wrap this up, I need to put out a word of caution. It can be hard sometimes to distinguish between a rescue mission and a distraction. There are all kinds of things that will distract us from our mission that have no purpose, and it is our job to discern what is a true divine interruption, if you will, and what is a distraction. For example, stopping to help someone in need is clearly something worthy of getting off schedule to accomplish. Stopping what you're working on to reply to an email or to check Facebook and then get lost for hours is a distraction. It has been an ongoing challenge for me to be able to make the distinction and then truly live in integrity with what I value so that I can limit those distractions, so I can get some meaningful work done. I'll talk more about that in a future episode. To further make the point, I would like to share a devotion from Savor, Living Abundantly Where You Are, As You Are, a devotional by Shauna Nyquist. She says in this devotional, it's called Catching On. Dear friend, let us love one another, for love comes from God. 1 John 4:7. In all my scrambling to do the right thing and be the right person, I miss some of the most important things I think God might be asking me to do. For the last several years, I've been too busy for interruptions. I work, and on behalf of a good cause, at the expense of all the things I would see if I slowed down enough to look around my life. I wanted to be productive and useful and focused, and I turned into someone who was so frazzled and scattered, who could not bear the emotional weight of her own life, let alone someone else's. This week, listening to God and doing what seemed like He was asking looked a lot like doing nothing, really. I changed plans and bought gifts and said prayers and made a little bed on the couch for a friend who needed a soft place for the night. There is nothing particularly noble or difficult about anything I did. I did the average things that needed to be done in the lives of the people around me, and I think I'm catching on to something that God wanted from me all along. Then she asked, have you ever been so caught up in a good cause that you lost sight of the people around you? Take a little time today, lay aside your agenda, and listen for what God is asking you. So the message is, slow down, enjoy the journey, take the side trips, make the stops, meet new people, create new friendships. I've learned that side trips I've made on my life journey that don't seem to fit my goals are always exactly what I need in that stretch of the road. God's view is always bigger than mine, and His timing is always perfect. There are dozens of times where had I not slowed down and made a connection that was seemingly random, I would have missed one of the most valuable relationships or lessons in life that God had planned for me. Although I can't be certain when my days will end, I believe my journey is far from over. I am truly grateful that I was given the opportunity to learn this lesson in life and to make the friendships that I have along the way. On the surface, I may not seem to be reaching the goals I had set for myself, but I am confident that I'm on the right path and that I will reach my destination at exactly the right time. In the meantime, I'm going to keep my eyes open for those turtles crossing the road, because when you think about it, they often are the whole reason for the journey. I hope you like what you heard today. If so, leave a comment, send me a message, or share this with your friends. I am so honored that you stopped by to listen to this episode, and I hope you will tune in next week where I will share my story on my search for enough, the journey that led me here. Talk about journeys and side trips. That's definitely one. Thank you so much for listening, and have an amazing day.